Welcome to More Than Our Story, where we strive to inspire people by sharing remarkable stories, and in doing so, help people realize they're never alone in their struggles. Today, I'm joined by Murali. I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing your time and your story with us.
My pleasure, Daniel. Nice. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Um, so how are you doing today?
Very good. Friday morning, week is coming to an end. Can't ask for a better way to end the week with this, conversation.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the conversation then. Um, Perhaps you can take us to the beginning of your incredible journey.
Yeah, it all started, I think I should say, one fine summer morning, actually, in Vancouver, Canada. Um, I was playing tennis early morning, maybe 7:30. I started feeling some kind of pain on the kidney side of things, and I right away realized it was a kidney stone. I had kidney stones when I was really young, but I can still feel that pain. So my thought was, I'll drink a lot of water, jump around playing tennis, and hopefully it comes out. For the first hour, it did. I was still able to move. And then my friend called me and said, you know what, do you want to continue playing tennis? I said, sure, why not? So this was around 10:30. We started playing the second session. Around half an hour into the session, I could not move. And that's when I felt like the stone has moved. And I was literally lying down in the floor. And one of the friend I was playing tennis with was an ex-firefighter. He said, Murali, I can take you to an emergency or I can call an ambulance. Emergency will take you over 5 hours, ambulance will take you in. I said, let's go for the ambulance because the pain was too much. But it was such a hot day. I think the ambulance were tied up with other things. So I could hear sirens coming closer to me, but then it'll take off. They won't come back. And then they said they were dealing with other emergencies. But the firefighters were there. They were really helpful. They put a blanket on me, even though it was a hot day. I was super cold. And then all I remember was getting into the emergency, going through the process of, getting some pain meds or whatever it was. But then on the process, they also did a CT scan. That was the first time I saw some kind of fear in the doctor who was attending me. That's not normal, right? You go into an emergency, they've probably seen everything. And he asked me the question, do you get back pains? I said, not abnormal kind of back pain. I do have back pain just like anybody else. I thought it was because of my activity and everything. And then he said, no, we got to do an MRI. There is a mass that we can see in the CT scan, but we are not sure what it is. So we got to do an MRI. So that was the beginning. Then I got the MRI done, and then they found out there was a big tumor. Nobody could recognize what it was. And then they booked an appointment with the doctor. And I think it took about 3 months to get to an appointment. And I found out it was one of the rarest form of bone cancer called chordoma. And that's when your life just changes, right? Like you're a healthy individual, don't drink, don't smoke, and then you wake up one day and then they say that you got something. When the doctor was saying this, I was literally blacking out, and I told her I gotta lie down. I need a minute to take all this in. And then she was amazing, by the way. The surgeon that I was talking to was just unbelievably amazing, patient. I've never experienced a specialist before. I would go to a family doctor where they see you in few minutes because they are rushing to a next one. This doctor was literally, the surgeon was literally sitting there and said, we got this, we'll work with you. In the meantime, you are going through the process, right? You are going through all the emotions, the fear, the anger. And that 3 months between finding it out first and actually conforming, that was the real nightmare. I'm pretty sure we all go through multiple different emotions. You question everything, right? Why me? Why is this happening? What is it going to be? So I went through that emotion. I think that'll take hours if you have to like talk about those emotions, but I'll fast forward to that moment forward, right? So this happened, and then I'm still confused. I was still confused. I thought maybe tomorrow when I wake up, it'll be gone. Everything was a dream or a nightmare. Uh, and then you're like trying to find a normal, right? Like she said, okay, this was May, August, we decided, or August, I found out that it was actually cancer. And then she said, we can work on this. I can get you into a surgery in September. So now the time between an August and September, I'm trying to find some normal, right? I'm going back to playing tennis, talking to people, and this is where I met somebody who recommended some TED Talks to me, right? Like, shame and vulnerability and all that stuff, because this was not just a cancer that I have to deal with. If I had to go through with the surgery, there were a lot of side effects, permanent side effects, if I come on the other side alive, right? So the first thing is the mortality of side, am I going to be alive or not? That's one thing. If I come out of the surgery on a positive side, the permanent nerve damages and the lifestyle that's going to be with. So all of this confusion lasted for, I would say, good 4 to 5 months. I'll pause there, Daniel, and see if you want me to go into anything specific or take a different direction from here. But that 5 months was definitely a nightmare.
I'm wondering how you processed it. Like you mentioned, you had a person that you were able to confide in. Um, how were you able to deal with your day to day? I'm assuming you were still working at that time. How are you able to compartmentalize going to work, knowing that you'd have this life changing surgery coming up? Like, was that hard to balance?
It was definitely hard to balance. You still have to pay the bills. Nobody's waiting for that. I think I was surrounded by a lot of positive people, and generally, I'm a positive guy. I think that also helped. My friends call me delusionally optimistic because my positive is to a point where people would like, how can you even be this positive, right? I think being that delusionally optimistic helped me to match some of my failures or some of my fear. But again, when you go to bed alone. So none of those things matter. You're still worried and sad. I'm not saying I took this in 100% positive manner. Maybe that's the phase that I put for the public, saying, okay, I don't want you guys to be seeing me in a scared manner. But in that 5 months, I talked to a lot of people, right? Like people like Marco Poschi, who's my previous CEO. He went through a major health thing. And then I talked to him. He said, Murali, I'm not going to say that you're going to be a victim. You need to be sad. You will get through it. So he gave me the tough love. But then somebody else gave me that compassion that I needed. You know what? We all have problems. You'll get through it. So I got all different views. And I talked to a few people who were living with those permanent nerve damage side effects. So I did a lot of research. But this particular person I was talking to you about was somebody who's actually a life coach. She plays tennis with me. So when I talked to her, she introduced me to Breanne Brown. And she said this one thing. And in that first few minutes of listening to that TED Talk of Breanne Brown was how men try to be strong, how we like to put that face and we don't show that shame and vulnerability aspect. And that really resonated with me, right? Like, I think I saw the doctor either on a Thursday or a Friday. I can't remember. I listened to this on a Sunday or a Saturday evening, and that was a switch. When she talked about shame and vulnerability, I was able to relate to it. And she said, don't put that mask on. I know you men are all like that. You guys don't want to show your emotions, but it's okay. And she has done extensive research on that. And that TED Talk really changed my thought process. And that day forward for me was, it happened. I'm the chosen one. Now, what can I do to, deal with this and fix it? I did not understand or expect the pain that I would go through because I've never been in a surgery before. So I didn't know any of those things. And I didn't do a lot of research. I didn't want to do a lot of research. I tried initially, but the blog post and all those things that was available was too scary, right? There were nobody came and said like, we can do this. So that's something that, when you reached out to me, I was interested. Is it doesn't need to be scary. Yes, the process will be scary. It will be there, but there is something that we can come out of in a positive manner that we can say, you know what? We got to trust in the system where whether it's the family, your friends, or the professionals who are helping you, they're going to be good people, bad people along the way. how do you align yourself with those positive people who are going to help you? So during the surgery, before the surgery, I met with both those people, good and bad. I kind of blocked out the bad people, and I aligned myself with the good people who I thought was going to help me in the process.
So you mentioned the surgery. Maybe you can ex- uh, extrapolate on that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to talk about chordoma a little bit before we go into the surgery would be helpful, right? This is supposed to be one of the rarest form of bone cancer out there. I know I'm not going to get the regular cancer. I'm special. I need something, extra special to make me even more special. Uh, Based on the research I found, again, I might be a little bit off here, but from the research I found and the surgeon, what she said, 1 in a million people get this in US, which means, let's say, 300 something people get in US. So there's not a lot of research done on this specific cancer. And out of that 1 in a million, almost 70% of them get it in their cervical, which affects the brain and all that stuff. For me, again, I'm extra special. I'm one of those 30% who get it in the sacral side of things. So that's on the chordoma side. The surgery was also unique and interesting. Um, my surgeon is part of Busan Spinal Cord Specialist. So they were a research facility which is not directly related, but they are focusing on spine injuries and spine related stuff. So it was really reassuring for me that they have experience, that they have done this kind of spinal work. And she, again, my surgeon, Sharon Morin, she was amazing, right? The first thing is you're trusting your life with somebody, and she was that person, and she was just amazing. She gave me all the time I needed, multiple phone calls, multiple visits, and she made us feel good. That was the number one reason. And then I also found out there were only two surgeons who can do the surgery in Canada. One was in Toronto, one was in Vancouver. And again, you got to think about this. This is happening during COVID, or peak of COVID. It started in 2021, so it's all during COVID. um, and then she introduced me to the whole spinal cord department in Vancouver General, right? I didn't know this existed. So they took me to this special thing. I was able to meet with the head nurse there. She was another amazing person, very, very experienced. I think she probably retired right now. She gave me all of those things, information I would need, where I'll be, all of this thing. I remember, going to a hospital tour and she showing me all that stuff. It was scary, but again, I'm putting this brave face. So once I got all of that, I got details of the surgery. I found out it's going to take about 12 hours, five different surgeons. So I met all of those surgeons. One who was working on the colostomy side of things, which means they're going to take my S2 to S5 off. The tumor was growing on the sacral part of the spine. So S1 to S5 is the very bottom part of the spine. And this tumor started growing. I don't know for how many years. It's supposed to be a slow growing tumor. It was benign, started growing, which means at the bottom of the spine, it started growing on top of the nerves. So S1 to S5 need to be taken out. So they are going to make a circular cut, almost 7 centimeter cut size of an egg, and remove it from the back, which means they got to move the intestine and everything forward. So a lot of those things were scary. And then I met with a plastic surgeon who's going to cover the back, taking the skin from the front, covering the back. Then the surgeon taking the muscle from the front, blocking it so the organs don't fall out. It was way too complicated for my mind to even process a lot of these things. So my wife have to go through all of these things. So I blocked most of these things, and I'm like, we'll deal with her, or let her deal with it. And I also have a 13-year-old who we didn't know how to communicate any of these things to her. We were thinking, should we not tell her? Should we tell her? So we were dealing with that side of things too. In the end, we did tell her, but not all the side effects that I have to deal with. So I met with all the surgeons. They assured me they were all experienced surgeons. So the biggest side effects were I will lose my bladder control, which means I have to do intermittent catheter every time I have to go pee. For a guy, That was the biggest thing I could not digest. Inserting something to pee every time is not normal. At least that's what I thought. Biggest fear for me was that. And then when she showed me a 14-inch catheter, I was like ready to black out another time. Then they talked about colostomy. Colostomy, I didn't feel too much because I also were going to lose my bowel control. They said, if you don't do it, you got to wear a diaper. That's not going to be good. So we got to do a colostomy. So losing bladder control, bowel control was just something that I could not imagine as a permanent nerve damage of the surgery. You go through all these things. Some people said, why don't you take a second opinion? Why don't you look at holistic medication, holistic approach? I trusted my surgeon, and I talked to few people, few doctors, few surgeons in US. Everybody said that's the right thing. So at that time, I have to put my belief in somebody. I can put it in God or I can put it in the surgeon. I took my bet on the surgeon. Here I am 3 years later, still here. Um, that's up to the surgery. Surgery morning, I took that shower and went in smiling. My wife was probably the most terrified compared to me because I went into anesthesia, woke up. I can't imagine the 12 hours that she was going through while I was in the surgery. But yeah, I woke up to an amazing nurse sitting next to me. When I woke up, I looked at him like he was my angel. He asked me what I wanted. I was parched. I said a ginger ale. He gave me ginger ale. I thought my life was amazing. I woke up and I had ginger ale. What more Canadian it could be? I can continue that story after what happened the surgery, but I'll pause for any questions or anything you want me to drill into, Daniel.
No, at this time I'm just loving the first of all the positivity, and your comment about how men tend to suppress any kind of fear. I can relate to that, but more so, I love the positivity that you were. I'm sure it was some of the pain medication too, but the fact that you woke up and you were just so happy. It's just remarkable outlook on life.
Absolutely, because there's no other way, right? Because in the morning when you're signing up for that surgery, you're signing a document that said you may not wake up. So when
Mhm.
you wake up after 12 hours, there's nothing else for you to do other than laugh and say you made it, right? So, but yeah, it was scary and weird emotion because when I took the shower and peed for the last time without a catheter, and I was telling myself, looking at the mirror, dude, this is the last time you're going to pee without a catheter, right? Like, this is the last time you're going to use the bathroom the normal way, right? So when you woke up and you literally like it's confused emotion, right? Yes, the pain medication is there, everything was there, but it's still an emotion that you got to deal with, not from the pain side of things, but everything else, right? And then I remember it was a nice dark room, and then they were taking me to the special area that they showed me where I will be, where I'll be taken to that, and that again, it's up and down, right? Like this was up, waking up was an up, but then the down was there's nobody because it was COVID time. You're alone in the bed. I think there were four other beds. There was just four beds in that ICU of that spinal cord area. And when I was taken through, I'm looking at the sides and I see people with all these tubes and everything. And I was attached to I don't know how many tubes for the first 7 days. And the surgeon even said, don't bring your daughter to the visit because there were too many tubes and too many things that is there. So and then you hear all these codes out there. That is scary. Then this is the first time I was in opioids. First 3 or 4 days were not bad. I didn't feel a lot of pain because I had an epidural attached to my spine. So my spine or below my spine was completely frozen, didn't feel much. But then when they started removing that tubes one by one, and when the epidural came out first, that's when the real downs were started happening, right? Again, I'm trying to block some of those things, but these are real things, right? Like you go through that pain. because it happened on my spine and also my front was open, I have to lay down on the side. And when you're laying down on the side, the pain happens, and the pain is not removed through the pain medication. The pain medication removes only the pain from the surgery, but the laying down on the side, that pain is still there. So, and according to the nurse thing, I think they can only turn me every 4 hours because of all the tubes in my body. There's a catheter attached to it. There's all these things. So that takes about 15 minutes and they can't be focusing on me. But the pain happens every hour and a half or two, I'll start getting the pain. So for the next 2 hours, I'm crying. I'm going through all this thing again. It was COVID, so nobody's there. You got to do it. And at some point, certain medication reacts differently. So I was hallucinating on one medication. I think there was some mistake. I was given extra medication than I should have taken, and I was hallucinating. I'm hallucinating as if something major shutdown is happening in Vancouver during COVID. Uh, all the hospitals are getting closed. All these things that you can't imagine, right? I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing things that's not there. I'm hearing things that's not there. I'm hearing people making fun of me outside that scream, right? Like all these emotions. And this was on the 10th day. My doctor is coming and telling me that the tumor is removed, the margins are clear, and it was a successful surgery 10 days later. And I'm telling her, I know you're telling me something positive, but I'm so high on these medication. I'm seeing things and hearing things that I shouldn't. That's when they realized that I was given a little bit more medication than I should. So then they changed me from, for example, hydromorphine to methadone. That's when I started seeing things better. I did not have any side effects. That was good. And then it was about 16, 17 days later, just even getting off the bed. This is where the nurses have been amazing throughout, right? I've got to give kudos to the Vancouver nurses and doctors. Yes, there were tough times. Yes, there were some challenges, but overall experience, right? There's always going to be good and bad. The bad might be 5%. We can hold on to the bad and say the whole system is wrong. Or you can look at the bigger picture and say, yeah, there are going to be some rotten apples. There are going to be some bad people. There are going to be somebody who's going through some type of time on their own. But overall, the system for me worked very well. The physiotherapist helped me to stand up, helped me to walk. The nurses helped me to do the catheters. The nurses helped me to change the colostomy. At one point, I was throwing up all the bile. The nurses calming me down, putting the tube through my nose, all of these things. The nurses are the real heroes for me, and the surgeons and the doctors. Without them, I don't think I would have come out of this in a way that I came out, to be honest. Yes, there were some bad experiences, but overall, they are the real heroes for me.
So I'm curious, how long until you were, let's see, I'll make this a two-part. When did you first get out of bed? And how long until you were able to, say, walk down the hallway? Because I know you had a few vertebrae removed completely. That's a major surgery. So I'm just curious, what were the timelines?
Yeah, they didn't want me to be in bed for too long. They said that will not help in this particular scenario. I think day 16, they tried to get me off the bed, but just getting me off the bed was a 2-hour exercise. Uh, there were like nurses, physiotherapists, my wife, everybody was around there just to get me off the bed because I can't bend, right? I got to slide in a way that I come off the bed standing. So this was a very unique situation to even stand. So there were all these people around me. I literally there were 5 to 6 people trying to help me off to slide. But at the same time, I can't slide because my spine is cut off, my front is cut off. So I had to find a position where I can slide. And when I stood for the first time, I couldn't walk because my hamstring nerves were so weak. And remember, they cut off a bunch of nerves. The nerves that help you to stand, the nerves. And they said that I might have like numb hamstrings, numb quads. My glutes dropped. I always joke to my wife, even yesterday we were sitting around and said, I used to have the best butt before the surgery. Now you're like, there's no nerves holding on. So it drops a little bit. So I would say the first 2, 3 days was just getting off and standing. Maybe walk 1 or 2 feet inside my room. Um, I would say it took me about 20th day or 25th day to walk the hallway. And again, my wife would come and we would walk the room, and then I would walk 10 steps, then I'd walk one part of the hallway, and then they asked me to climb up the stairs. So I did the stairs. By I think the 25th day, I think I would go around the hallway or the all the lobby area. I started, talking to nurses and other patients by end of 25th day. But day 16 to 25th was a process. It was a very tough process.
And what about your current state of health? Any ongoing treatments or scans? Any worries about the tumor coming back?
So thank goodness for again this particular process. Right now, the only thing that I go through is a 6 month scan. I just for the first 2 years they did a 3 month scan or MRI. Now I've moved on. After the first 2 years, they moved me on to a 6 month scan, which is really good. If I go past fifth year, it'll be a 1 year scan. They are keeping a close eye on me. I've donated my tumor. I work with the research team on questionnaires and updating my current process every few months. So I'm really involved in that process. But current health, I feel I am back to 100%. Mentally, I may not on certain days, but most days I feel pretty good. Uh, uh, Fear hits me. I won't lie. Uh, Physically, I'm 100%, but mentally, I'm not. There are days that fear hits me randomly, thinking about the future. But that's one thing I want to talk very quickly, Daniel. You probably heard this from a lot of people. When you're going through that, initially I was looking at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That was the worst thing that I did to myself. Every time I think about the future, it scares me. Even like couple days back, I went to Costco and a fear hit me, right? Like these random thoughts. What happened if there was some logistical problem and then there's no food, right? What would that life be? And because I use intermittent catheter and the colostomy bag and everything, I have to order these appliances every month. My biggest fear is what happened? There is something in the supply chain and I don't get my catheter. What will that be? Right? Like these kind of fears happen. So mentally, that is my challenge. Um, Physically, I'm 100%. I play tennis, I hike, I work out, I can lift weight. Before this, after the surgery, for the first few months, I can't even lift a grocery bag. When the physiotherapist happened, I can't even like do one squat. Now, every day I wake up, I do meditation for 10 days. It's 10 minutes. I do some workout for 20 minutes. I walk for 30 minutes. This is my morning. And then during the day, I try to walk anywhere between 6 to 10 kilometers and try play tennis, right? And hike. So I can swim. I can sit on a plane for 16 hours. So I have found my own thing. In my profession, I'm what is called a solution architect. So I try to find my own solution. Yes, the nurses taught me certain things on how to manage certain things, but in the last 3 years, I have come up with my own process. So I have come up with a own process that I have not seen anywhere in the internet about doing intermittent catheter. I wish I can do a story about all that stuff, but I'm a little bit of a private person. I don't like my own videos. So that's why even when we are talking about it, I said, can you not use my last name for that reason? Is I want to help the community. I want to make the impact. To answer your question in a very short way, physically, I feel I'm 100%. I'm back to where I was, but mentally, I'm 100% some days, I'm 10% some days. So trying to find that balance has been the challenge.
I find I can definitely resonate with that. I find it helps to just live in the now. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. It's not in our control. Just be positive and really just live in the moment, I think, is the best way to proceed with living after and with cancer.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no other treatment needed because none of the radiation will work. I think if it ever comes back, fingers crossed, I hope it doesn't come back. The only thing possible is called a proton therapy. I think that's only available in Seattle, but I don't see it would be a positive thing. So I'm just going with being delusionally optimistic, saying it's never coming back.
Well, I love that phrase, delusionally optimistic. You
Yeah.
are nothing if not that, and you've made such a fantastic recovery. It's remarkable. It's just want to commend you.
Thank you. Again, it's not just me. It's the friends, family, my coworkers, and the support. I have to give a shout out to one of my manager, uh, Helen Baptist. She was my rock during this whole process. When I because you think from it, right? You look at from an economical situation, you look at from a life situation, but when your manager guarantees the economical side of things and says we'll take care of your family, and the company Path Factory, right, the company, but immediate manager Helen Baptist at that time gave me that confidence, saying don't worry about anything. Even when I came back, he changed my role to a role that I don't have to be customer facing, help with the strategy side of things, stay at the background, do what I wanted to do, and then tell her when I'm ready to come back to work. Like that kind of compassion is what really helped me, right? Not just from her. Some of my friend, one of my friend, he's a nurse. He would come to my house, help me walk every day, right? So these are the kind of people who really, and I'm so lucky and humbled to have these people in my circle. And that is my biggest thing. One thing I do want to touch on is the withdrawal and the process that happens after the surgery, because that is where the close circle comes into play. So let's fast forward from that point to a 3 month time when I was meeting my surgeon and the pain was going down, the recovery was getting there. And then when they said, yep, it's time to get off the medication, me being me, nobody to blame, I went cold turkey on one medication that I thought was just given for nerve damages. Little that I know, it was also an opioid. And when I went cold turkey on that, I was taking about 6 tablets a day and I went cold turkey. I was still taking my methadone, but on this one, I went cold turkey. Daniel, you wouldn't believe the tricks it plays on your mind. Literally, I started getting all the side effects of withdrawal without knowing I was going through the side effects of withdrawal. I thought it was one of the colostomy issue where I felt constipated, nauseous, and all that, right? Initially, it started that way. But then it started playing games with my mind. I was worried to go to bed because I know I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock, lie down in the bed, and my mind is going to say, you're good for nothing. This is never going to end. Kill yourself. I'm not kidding. That is exactly what my mind was telling me. That was the toughest 1 week. Again, I didn't know what was happening. I took some nausea medication and everything. It managed that pain of it, but it didn't help me with the mental side of it. Again, thank goodness for TED Talk. I was listening to another TED Talk during my research. I found out that it was part of a withdrawal process. And this is when I realized, oh my God, I shouldn't have gone cold turkey. This is the thing. So then I talked to my family doctor, and then she said, okay, let's cut off these methadone when we are starting to wean off it, 0.5 mg every week. So even when I was cutting 0.5 mg every week, I was getting withdrawal for a week, right? This is one message I want to communicate out there and see if I can advocate for that is I'm not saying opioids are bad, but how do you wean out of that? Learn a lot about it, because that is one thing I wish the medical system would have helped me a little bit more for somebody who has never taken medication, how to wean off that. That is something that I want to advocate and talk to people, saying that is a critical thing. Um, Withdrawal is going to affect you. Surround yourself with people that can help you with that, both physically and mentally. So that is one message. If there is one message I can give, that is one. The reason is I used to look down on people with drug addiction, but now I can completely understand the reason for what's happening in the country and our cities. It's not by choice. Some of them are real reasons, and we need to feel a little bit more compassion. And this was a lesson that I've learned. It's easy to look down on somebody, but I learned my lesson the hard way. I don't look down on people anymore.
That's a very powerful message, and I completely agree.
Yeah,
Addiction, it's a huge problem, and it can affect anybody. And there's a lot of stigma too.
yeah,
People use the phrase "look down." You think it's that person's fault. They must have been abusing medication or taking illegal drugs. Like with you, for example, you are taking doctor prescribed pain management medication, um, which can be opioids can be habit forming even at usually prescribed levels. So I
yeah.
just want to commend you and for bringing that to the forefront.
Absolutely. Yep. That was one thing I got out of this, right? Like, well, two things. One, this was the stronger of the two. The second one is you question the reason for you to be here for the second time, right? And as I said, the reason for me to be here for the second time with the smartness I have or gained during this process is to impact somebody, right? I told this the first time when we chatted. I know I can't change the world. I'm not going to even try that. But if I can put a smile on somebody's face, if I can make them think for a second that they can do this, they can go through this process, or they can support their loved ones in this process, that's the impact I want to make. And that's why I agreed to this. As being as private as I am, I don't even have a picture in my LinkedIn because I don't want people to look at my photo to see what my achievements are on LinkedIn. I have no social media presence. I don't want my story to be about me. My story is not about me. My story is about others who are going through the same thing. My dad is a novelist. He would always say, why he's a national award winning novelist in India. He would say this one thing: my story is about everyday Indian. That's why my story is related to everybody who reads it. You become part of that character, right? You become the hero of that character. You become the supporting character, whatever it might be. You become part of the story. So that's what I want this to be. I want this positive thing. You can remove my name and it could be somebody. If we can do that together, I think that's what the outcome that I'm hoping for from this conversation.
Well, I think you've definitely accomplished that. It's clear from your optimism that other people who are going through similar things are going to watch this and realize it's not that bad. I can get through this. I can do this. So I just want to thank you for being very honest, very open, and just sharing your story of what was that word? Whatever.
Delusionally optimistic.
That's the one. Yes.
There we go. Let's coin that phrase, delusionally optimistic. It's okay to be delusionally optimistic, right? People say, oh, envision what you want to be. That's to a level, right? Then you question, is it real? Can I do it? But if you're delusionally optimistic, and I'll give you an example of how delusionally optimistic I could be, I would go to some events, and if they're doing a 50-50 draw, I'll buy one ticket and I'll say, I'm going to win the top prize on this. And it'll happen, right? So you can buy 100 tickets and say, I'm not going to win it. Or you can buy one ticket and say, I'm going to win it. Right? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if you're that confident, if it happens, you look good.
Well,
Yeah,
Murali, you are a true inspiration for everybody. And I just want to thank you again for sharing your story with all of us.
my pleasure. I really, really thank you for having me here and what you're doing, because this is important. Because people like me can't do what you're doing, but we can be part of what you're trying to do. So I'm very happy that Kerry connected us and we were able to have this conversation. And as I said, if we can impact one person, we achieved what we set for. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your support and getting this message out.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome, Daniel. Thank you.